Hey, Chapel Warriors. It is Tammy here tonight, and I am joined alongside of Henry Ball, Chapel Warrior Laura Finney, and then our special guest, Matt Duff. So we've got something different planned for you tonight. We appreciate all that you've done for Mike Chapel, and Matt has actually helped us out. So we are returning the favor, and we're going to hear a little bit tonight about the hit podcast Cousins by Blood. And this is a story of Ivan Cantu and the injustice that he is facing. He's actually a couple weeks away from execution. And so this is a very important story. I myself am not aware of it. Our chapel warrior, Laura, has really vested herself into this and brought it to Henry's attention and said, we've got to hear this. So tonight, we're going to turn it over to them and hear exactly what is happening here and how important it is for us to help Ivan if possible.
Yeah, and so I'll just real quickly introduce Laura Griffin Finney. Of course, we all know that she is an amazing chapel warrior and has helped us in organizing the live event and other fundraising events, and has just been very helpful for Michael Chapel. And I don't know, maybe about a year and a half ago or so, Ivan Cantu was facing his previous execution date. And Laura said, hey, guys, you really need to listen to this podcast. There's a guy in Texas that is about to be executed for a crime that she believed he didn't commit. And I told her, I said, hey, look, I don't have the bandwidth. I'm knee deep in the Michael Chapel case, and I have a family and a job and all of these things, and I just can't really do it. And she said, Henry, you won't regret it if you take a listen to this podcast. And so I did. And Matt has about I think 149 episodes of Cousins.
No, in the 40s, not 100.
Okay, just 40.
Don't scare them away.
That's still a lot.
Don't scare them away.
But I tell you, once you start getting into them, it's like really eye-opening. Matt is a private investigator and has done a wonderful job with that podcast. But before we bring Matt on, Laura, what was it about the case, about the podcast that made you feel so strongly that, hey, we really need to listen to this, guys, and if we can help Ivan, we need to do that?
Hey guys, and thanks, Henry, and hello to all the chapel warriors out there. Yeah, I've been following Cousins by Blood for, has it been 3 years? The podcast,
it started in 2020.
2020. So I don't know. I'm a a podcast junkie, I call myself, but really a crime podcast junkie, and it really started with the first episode, our first season of Serial, which some of you may have followed, about Adnan Syed. And so I just literally seek these out. And with Ivan and his case, you think there's not another twist or a turn that it can take, and it does. And there's so much. Ivan did not receive a fair trial, in my opinion. I don't think he's guilty of the charge he's been convicted of, and definitely don't think that he should be up for execution on the 28th, which is his third go at this. But it was just the inconsistencies throughout, the things that just could not have been. And there's a lot out on Patreon with the mortgage fraud and other things, and I've listened to that, and was hard to listen to with me having a CPA, accounting, auditing, mortgage banking background. But I guess it came down to that there were so many things that were not looked at, and then the recanting of testimonies and the fact that he keeps getting denials just is bringing it more to light to me of our justice system. And again, like Mike Chapel said, it's the best in the world, but it has its flaws, just like anything else. But I'm just here and following and very passionate about, Cousins by Blood and Ivan and what he's facing very soon. I actually started listening to Sister Helen's book on my 5-hour drive today. That is not a new book. It's a movie we probably all have heard about. Dead Men Walking is the book's name. But just,
Is that who Sister Helen is?
yeah.
The
Yep.
Susan Sarandon character?
And I
Okay.
had no idea that was that movie, that it was really a true story. The character is made into one, but what are we at? What is today? The 16th?
12 days.
Yeah, so 12 days. And so was one of the guys in the first character in Dead Men Walking. He came up to his third date, and it's what can we do? And let's pull in the Chapel Warriors, because like Henry said, I mean, Matt, you've done the legwork, you've done the investigation, you know more than anybody, but there is way too much out there that just brings pause in my mind. I think that Amy, the girlfriend, and her brother, and maybe the roommate, I don't think it had anything to do with mortgage fraud, in my opinion, at all. I think it was the drugs, and but he does not deserve to be executed. He did not receive a fair trial, period.
Well, and I think that's where a lot of us come down. Matt, obviously myself and Laura and a few other people in our group have followed Cousins by Blood. I know that this week, as people were preparing for tonight, and I see we've got some folks on watching now. I know some folks started listening to get caught up. But why don't you tell us, if you would, kind of, give us your elevator pitch about the story. Give us the Cousins by Blood, 149 episodes in 5 minutes.
Don't call it 149 episodes. You're going to scare people away. I do have too many episodes, but the story just kept unfolding. Currently, we're at 46, but there probably will be 50 because we're going to keep, there's more to tell. But basically, the quick pitch is, so the state's case is that Ivan Cantu, he was 27 at the time, living in Dallas. He goes over and murders his cousin one Friday night, and then comes back. And the state's case is pretty much comes from his girlfriend at the time. So a lot of the story comes from his girlfriend. So he went over, Ivan Cantu went over and murdered his cousin, comes back with bloody clothes, puts a bloody clothes in the trash can, and then they go out partying that night. There's a ring that is stolen.
They go out partying in the victim's car, right?
In the victim's car, showing off, the state's case is showing off the dead fiance's ring, because his girlfriend, Ivan Cantu's girlfriend, was showing off a ring that night. They go out partying. People see them. They see him in the victim's car. They see him with the ring. They go to Amy Betcher, the girlfriend's parents' house in Arkansas, for 3 days. They're there for 3 days. Amy Betcher doesn't mention anything about the murders. It seems like kind of a meet the parents long weekend. Then they come back to Dallas, and then kind of on the way to Dallas in that 3-day period, police have gotten a search warrant to look around their apartment. They find the bloody clothes. They find bullets in the closet. They find keys to the victim's cars in the closet in a shoe. And then so by the time they get back to Dallas, Ivan has been talking with the police the whole time, saying he's coming back to Dallas. And at that point, the police don't let him know that he's a suspect. So he comes back to Dallas. They crash with one of Ivan's ex-girlfriends that night. Ivan gets up that morning, is going with his mom to meet with the police, but then I think they had some conversation. Well, probably, should get an attorney here. They are going to meet with an attorney, and apparently the Dallas PD had actually been monitoring his position, and then they arrest him at that point. And the girlfriend from Arkansas, she was at the ex-girlfriend's apartment. And then when Ivan gets arrested, she says, okay, I'm going back to Arkansas. She flies back. The ex-girlfriend drops her off at the airport. And then dropping her off at the airport, Amy Betcher, the current girlfriend, tells the ex-girlfriend, you might want to look around your apartment. Ivan might have left something. And very kind of nonchalant like that. The former girlfriend goes back to her apartment, flips up a couch cushion, and finds what turns out to be the murder weapon, a box of bullets, and some drugs.
Didn't she also give didn't the current girlfriend also give the ex-girlfriend some money or some cash at the airport?
Yeah, she said that she gave her, and then like the amount of money has been, we haven't been able to pin down, but it could have been as much as like $1,500. And so the former girlfriend had no idea why she would give her that much money. But yeah, so she said, here's the money, and go look around your apartment, so it was that was very curious. And so at that point, basically Ivan is arrested. They've got evidence everywhere. They've got the cousin's Corvette outside of his apartment. They've got bloody evidence in his apartment. They got the murder weapon in the former girlfriend's apartment. And so it's an open and shut case for the most part, if you look at it like that. And so
how they tie all of this to Ivan is the girlfriend, right? Like her testimony and.
Yeah. It's mostly her testimony and her brother's testimony, right, that kind of solidifies the state's case that fits with the evidence, and it all does fit with the evidence. I mean that's significant to point out that they're saying things, and then the evidence fits with their narrative. So basically, Ivan, was convicted in the next year. But when I got started in the case, what you see is that, when I found out about the case, I found out about the case in like 2016 from a blog where this woman had befriended Ivan, and over the years, she wanted to help Ivan. She had heard his side of the story, and the interesting thing about the trial was that, the state presented 7 days of evidence, about 30 witnesses. And then the state, when they were ready to rest, they stand up and they said the prosecution rests. Well, at that point, the defense stands up and they say the defense rests. And Ivan's looking over at his attorneys like, what the hell? Like I've told you, like, and Ivan had sent me lists of people that he wanted to be called, lists of questions that he wanted to be asked. But his defense asked 0 questions. And so when I found this blog where this woman who had befriended Ivan had laid out Ivan's side of the story, I didn't know what side was right, but I just knew that there was a whole other side of the story that needed to be told. And Amy Betcher's story sounds pretty crazy, that Ivan murdered his cousin, and then he's driving around in his cousin's Corvette and stole the ring off his ring and showing off the ring. It just sounds really like, I'm like, did that really happen? But then you look at Ivan's side of the story, and Ivan's side of the story is pretty crazy too, and granted, they were both on so many drugs. Like they were on at least coke, ecstasy, and speed that night. So it just, the waters get really murky. So they were really partying. But just the fact that Ivan would, and that Amy
don't do drugs, kids.
Yeah.
This is what happens.
Yeah, that Amy would want to, or still the plan would be to take Ivan to meet her parents for the first time, which her parents, it wasn't like 15 minutes away. Her parents were 8 hours away in Arkansas. Like it just like to meet her parents.
Wasn't her father a law enforcement officer?
Yeah, and her father's former law enforcement. So it's like, okay, and I interviewed him, and I think that's kind of when maybe the story, and that's episode 4, when the story gets a little more interesting for the audience, when they're like, when I'm asking him, did you get any inclination that Ivan could have murdered, these people when he's staying at your house and grilling out hot dogs and stuff for 3 days? And he's like, I had no idea. Seems like a nice guy, and Ivan, he was a drug user, a very, and what most people would call a very hard drug user. But he was in the mortgage business. He was holding down, a job. He at one time was very successful in the mortgage business. So, I mean, this was like, not just a guy from the streets that was just trying to like figured out how to put on a good face for her parents. Like this is a legitimate guy that, owned a house, was making $100,000, a little more at like 25. His life kind of hit the skids because he was into drugs. But to think that, but there wasn't really no history of violence. There was a little bit of history with him and his former wives. There was some domestic abuse violence, but as far as ever having a gun and things like that, that does not exist in his history. So to think that a guy could just hold it together with the girlfriend's parents that are supposed to be his new in-laws for 3 days, and they never got any sign of that. I mean, that's just wild and fascinating. But so when I got started in 2019 on the case, the first thing that I discovered is so basically Ivan was convicted of the murders and then also a robbery. And there were 3 elements in the robbery. It was James' Corvette, James's Rolex, and the engagement ring. So very early on, when I first started talking to Ivan, I interviewed him for 2 days in prison to get his side of the story and get it all documented. And he's telling me, man, they painted me as this guy that was down and out, and I needed cash. He's like, Amy's story is that I threw out a Rolex out of a moving vehicle, just threw it out by the side of the road. He's like, if I needed cash, man, I would have hawked it. I would have pawned that thing. And I'm like, yeah, that does make sense, Ivan. And so I go back and I start, telling other people, his family, like that I'm interviewing, and sure enough, like within a couple of days, a family member calls me up and from Ivan's side of the family, and they say from the victim's side of the family, James's mom, the victim's mom, has that Rolex. And I said, well, what
That's
do you mean?
interesting.
What do you mean she has the Rolex?
Yeah.
Because wasn't there like an inscription on the Rolex, so it was very distinctive?
It was very distinctive. And so when I find out that she has that Rolex, I said, well, what do you mean? And basically what happened was, the families, after the house was released back to the families, after the police were did their thing, a missing items report was made that Rolex was missing. And so they basically, that became part of like, Ivan stole that Rolex. But what was uncovered was that no, the family got it back. It was never missing. But by determining that it wasn't missing, or that it wasn't stolen, that shows that not only did Amy lie, because Amy was the one that said that he threw it out the window, but it also shows Amy shouldn't have had that information. The cops had that information, and they planted that into Amy's story. So that's why Amy's story, which came out a couple days after all the evidence was gathered by the police, that does fit pretty well to the narrative, because it just looks like the police were able to insert different details into Amy's story. And so what has come out
details that later fell apart, such as the Rolex.
Sure.
Yeah.
Such as the Rolex, such as the time of death. Amy said that he went over there at midnight and committed the murders. I've got 2 forensic pathologists that said due to the rigor mortis that she would have been killed after like 6:30 a.m. So that's a difference of about 7 hours. The bloody clothes, which she says, Ivan came back and put bloody clothes in the trash can. Well, guess what? They did find bloody clothes in the trash can, but when you look at the bloody clothes in the trash can, they can't find Ivan's DNA on the bloody clothes. So how could
not only that, there was a wellness check prior to the police search. Wasn't it like 2 hours prior or 3 hours prior when they went in for the wellness check, or was it the day before?
Well, the wellness check was performed a couple hours after the bodies were found, because Ivan's mom was at the victim's house, and because Ivan's mom was the aunt of James,
and
so
Ivan
she was obviously,
and his girlfriend Amy were already in Arkansas when the wellness check happened, and where were the bloody clothes during the wellness check?
Well, during the wellness check, the bloody clothes weren't there. You know,
Right.
the cops were in there for 15 minutes. I interviewed one of the officers that searched that apartment for 15 minutes. It's a small apartment, it's from here to there, and they didn't see any bloody clothes. But then 3 days later, when they get the search warrant, all of a sudden the bloody clothes are right on top of the trash, just laying on top of the trash. So, when you start looking at, okay, the bloody clothes is laying on top of the trash. A box of bullets that matches a murder weapon is just right up top. As soon as you open the closet, you see them. Keys are just in a shoe in the closet. And, people like this one guy said, it's like, Matt, who hides, these keys in a shoe? That's a 7-year-old. That's what a 7-year-old would do, and it's just,
Or somebody
James is
just wanting you to find them.
But
or
the jeans were 3 sizes too big for Ivan. He was a little guy. He is a little guy.
right. Yeah, the jeans are too big. The jeans and the socks don't have Ivan's DNA on them. They can't find it if it was tried today, they could not even put those into evidence, because the defense could say, well, find Ivan's DNA. They can't,
Hey,
but
Matt, I have a question, because I have not listened to the podcast at all, but hearing all the information you're telling me right now, with all of that contradictory evidence, as well as the obvious stuff that seems out of place, like too coincidental. Have y'all presented that, and how has that been taken? Has there been any response to that?
Well, so with the DNA evidence, just talking about that real quick, there was post conviction DNA testing done, and then when that was presented in 2018, they basically said that they didn't find anybody else's DNA on it, so it was
Must be
dispositive.
his.
Like they couldn't, and the prosecutor does say, we cannot definitively say who wore these jeans and socks, but by not being able to find somebody else's and not being able to completely rule out Ivan's, it's kind of a wash.
And here's the thing for me that kind of tips the scale as to Ivan did not receive a fair trial. I'm of the belief that when the police feel like they have to plant evidence, or they have to, kind of put their thumb on the scale, then, that's an all stop for me. And at this point, they've got this pair of bloody jeans that they've found in the trash can after the wellness search, or after the wellness check, where they weren't there. But they've got this pair of jeans. It doesn't have Ivan's DNA on it, but they want to tie these jeans to Ivan. So I believe it was the lead detective says, well, I saw an identical pair of these jeans hanging in the closet. So he gets, and he says they're the identical size. But now here's what's funny. Matt has pictures of everything in the closet, which doesn't include these jeans. And if you're a detective, and I've talked to several detectives and an FBI agent and investigators about this, and you want to say that these jeans match these jeans, so this must be this guy's clothing, what do? You tag it and bag it. You put these jeans into evidence, just like the bloody jeans, right? But they don't. What they do apparently is they take the jeans out, maybe lay them on the bed or somewhere safe, take pictures of everything in the closet, and then put them back in the closet and forget about them until trial, when they need to, tie these bloody jeans back to Ivan. Here's the other thing about the jeans. In the pictures that Matt has posted on his website, the inside tag, which is the only place you can look to see the size of the jeans. So what the detective is telling us is that he saw these jeans hanging in the closet, went in, looked at the tag, and verified that the tag was the same size, then took them out, took pictures of the closet, and then put them back. I'm not buying any of that. But more than that, the bloody jeans have someone's initials on the tag. And I asked Matt about that. I said, Matt, whose initials is that? And he said, well, it's the lead detective's apparently, because the initials match that detective. And I said, what? And he said, yeah, apparently to identify the genes, he took a Sharpie and wrote his initials inside the bloody genes on the tag. I said, no way. I said, there's no way. I talked to an FBI agent and a couple of other investigators and law enforcement officers, and every one of them said that is absurd.
Mm-hmm.
And Matt said to me, well, I don't know why would anybody's initials be on the genes? And I said, well, anybody who's ever been in rehab, anybody who's ever been in jail, anybody who's ever been in any kind of a facility would put their initials inside their pants, probably on the tag. And Matt said, oh, yeah, that makes sense. So the genes for me is a bridge too far. It doesn't mean that I'm declaring Ivan's, innocence or guilt. It means that I'm declaring, for me, Ivan didn't have a fair trial because somebody put those genes in that trash can after the wellness check. It doesn't match Ivan's DNA, and there was no second pair of pants. And that's not the detective's initials written inside the tag. That's my soapbox.
Well, but like I said, and I don't know the information, and Laura, you do. Just sitting here listening to what you're saying, there's so many things that are just off that it is frightening to think. It's one thing when you put somebody in jail for life, which is horrible too, but to take their life from them and you are all over the place with evidence and the trial and it just doesn't make sense. That's nuts. It makes me want to think, who's involved that has something in the game here.
Yeah.
Well, and Matt, I wanted to something that's been that keeps coming back to me. So a couple of things. And a lot of this we could never answer these questions, and a lot is speculation. But with the genes, and this is something, Tammy, that would be more to add to the story. But the genes. Okay, so Ivan liked to dress nicely. He, was wearing the designer stuff, I guess you could say. These jeans were not. They were like Jordache or something. I don't remember what the brand was.
Arizona.
Yeah.
Hey, that was designer when I was growing up.
So there was they ran in a circle of, a lot of different, groups, but kind of ran in the same circle. And one of the individuals, a girl in the circle, worked for the company that manufactured these jeans, which were a special type of like jeans. So you could tell they were manufactured in this facility. Okay. Mm-hmm. That's odd. But I've also what continues to bother me is I definitely think the girlfriend, Amy, was involved, but her brother, and then the roommate, but her brother had access to her apartment or their apartment, and he had access to, I think, Tawny's, probably the ex-girlfriend. And he since, recanted his, his testimony, which that should right there stop. But one thing that's bothered me is you haven't touched on this, Matt, is the gun and that was in Tawny's apartment and the fingerprint, which is drugged out as they always were. How easy would it be to take Ivan? I mean, how easy would it be to put his thumbprint on a weapon after a night out? I mean, you can't prove that. No, it's speculation. But to me, he's never, everyone that knows him, he's never held a gun. He doesn't know how to operate a gun. He doesn't have guns. No. But this gun shows up at Tawny's while no one's there with his thumbprint. It just doesn't add up all to me. And there's so much there with the brother and Amy, in which we can't talk to Amy now. But then the roommate made the statement when the bodies were still there that, oh no, they didn't die last night. They died this morning. How does it? But then he wanted, where's the paperwork? I need the paperwork. I need the mortgage paperwork. So
Yeah.
So
I
at
mean,
this point, go ahead, Matt.
well, yeah, one of the, I mean, like what makes it a fascinating story and why I had to do so many episodes are there so many people that to look at, because you got, so, you think of a murder, and then you find out that James and Amy, the victims, well, there was a random guy living in their guest bedroom for only 3 weeks, and nobody else knew he was living there. And he was like 10 years older than them. And what is this guy doing there? Like, that's weird. And then you got, Jeff and Amy, or Amy and Jeff Betcher, very, very questionable people. And then also these other people that continue to come up in the story, Carlos and Anthony. But for me, what really, I mean, if we're just going to talk about why Ivan should not be executed, without a shadow of a doubt, is when you have two witnesses, one being Amy Betcher, who was the state star witness who basically put this all together for him. And we can prove that the cops were feeding her details to match the crime, and she was lying. She lied about some of those details. And then her brother, who was also living with Ivan for like 2 weeks before this happens, her brother presented material testimony that said he was the only one that Ivan was planning the murders. He said Ivan told him he was planning the murders. He said that Ivan showed him the gun. He said that Ivan showed him the bullets. And he said after the murders happened, he bragged to him. So you got those four main factors. And then that in 2022, 2 years ago, he comes forward after Amy dies and says, I lied. I want to recant that I made that up. And you could tell, like in the video with Collin County interviewing him, it was weighing on him. All right.
And they were trying to get him to stick to his original story.
Right.
And they were trying to, get him to like, no, that you're just, feeling bad. And he was like, no, I lied, and then everybody comes out and says, well, he didn't recant. Well, yeah, he did exactly recant. He said, I lied. I lied about all of it. I made it up.
Yeah.
I wouldn't know any of that.
Well,
right.
Which this was on Patreon, I guess, more recent. And not that this has anything to do with it, but to me, it's a red flag that Amy's boyfriend before Ivan, a year before, was murdered. Like,
got a bad track record.
That's a new point. I missed that.
Here's the thing, though. We could sit here and work through every point all night long, and it still not do anything to help.
Yeah.
At this point, this man is scheduled to die in just a couple of weeks. And it sounds like they have not responded to any of the new evidence. They have not responded to any of the pressure that has been put on them. What can we do, Matt? What can we do to try to stop this, to at least, have some more time to look through it?
Well, and I want to, before you answer, I really would like to know, Matt, and you don't have to answer this, but what you are so invested in this. And I feel so honored to be on here, by the way, too. I've been just following this for years now, but how do you feel? Like, truly, how do you feel? I mean, we're days from this. I'm sure that Ivan is, who knows what he's going through. But how do you feel? I mean, I know you have to be optimistic. I mean, the last habeas that was last week denied was what he felt his last straw, and like, we need a miracle.
So there's a lot of questions there, but basically I feel optimistic. What people can do right now, if you're in the Dallas area or have an opportunity to go to Dallas, there's going to be a huge rally at Collin County Courthouse. We have Sister Helen Prejean is kind of leading the media charge. She was the nun that was in Dead Man Walking, and she's bringing on as much media attention as she can garner, and bringing in celebrities. So we're gonna kind of push that. But it's very frustrating when we know their cards to be played, but the state and the courts won't let us sit down at the table and play them. We got a winning hand that it literally by the letter of the law entitles Ivan to a new trial, because when you have two witnesses that we can prove presented material evidence, material testimony, when you can prove that was fraudulent, that entitles you to a new trial. But the state and the Court of Criminal Appeals is saying procedurally barred. Procedurally barred. We can't, without even looking into the merits of the evidence, procedurally barred. Okay, well then we go and we're doing some more.
We know that phrase all too well.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that they can hide behind, and like pretty soon, enough people are going to get hip to this, and they obviously, people in the know, like your audience, knows that the system is flawed. But then when you start to see how the system is flawed, and Sister Helen brought up a great point in my last interview with her. It's like, okay, the system's flawed. How do we fix it? Well, the people in power are never punished by continuing to do what they do. So there has to be a punishment. There has to be, there has to be something that you can't do this to the people in, for the people in power to spank them. But there isn't that lever. But what I will say, on this, and I haven't even broke this on our podcast, is, why we are hopeful is Gina's going to be filing Tuesday. So that's about 5 days from today. Literally 2 days ago, we found another major piece. And you know the story about the pizza man. We have found the pizza man. We can
seen it. He found him.
Wow.
We have identified the pizza man, and he is connected to James. And so basically what I've been working on the past 2 days is trying to put more meat on that bone, just so that through declarations and affidavits that Gina can put together for the filing on Tuesday. But yeah, that's what we're dealing with now. Because of that, I'm hopeful, and Ivan is hopeful. But without that, it was not looking good. With that piece, it's just now we have found a major player that it's taken me 4 years to find. We found him. Now, can we figure it all out in 4 days? I don't know, but when you put that together with all the other stuff that we have, put a pause on this, man. Put a pause on this execution and let us figure it out.
Yeah.
So who do we contact? So I'm sure you have flooded everybody already, but at this point, you got to try again.
Yeah, try again. I would tell everybody connected to you all to call basically go to ivancantu.org.
Okay.
If you go to ivancantu.org, that will direct you to the places to go.
Okay.
And we'll post that in the comments.
Yeah, we appreciate you so much, Matt, bringing this to light, because there's too many injustices that are just covered up. And then, in this situation, he's still here and he still has some hope, and he has people still fighting for him. There's so many that haven't had that opportunity. It's unfortunate.
Yeah.
It truly is. You think about how many other Ivan Cantus are out there, and that's what's devastating. Yeah. That's what's devastating. And if they kill Ivan Cantu with having a podcast, with having, Kim Kardashian and these celebrities behind him, like Ivan says it today, Matt, I'm so lucky to have all of this coming together for me, but they might still kill me. And think about all the people that don't have this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, thank you for bringing that to light. Laura, thank you for bending Henry's ear on this. I am definitely going to listen. And I'll be praying for Ivan, and we'll post it in the group, of course, and do whatever we can to try to sway that decision.
Yeah.
Matt, I just want to say that I think you've done a great job. I enjoyed the podcast for podcast reasons, but it's a very serious subject matter, much like our mission here for Michael Chapel. And I feel like you have been tenacious, and you have been steadfast, and you've done a great job of uncovering a lot of buried truths, and making the facts come out. And keep up the good work, and hopefully our Chapel Warriors will do what we can to help. And we appreciate you being here, man. Thanks.
Yep.
I just want to say to Matt, you and Henry, what selfless acts you both are doing and have done. And I'm just so thankful there are people like you two out there doing this. So yeah, I enjoyed getting to know you, the podcast through you, Matt, and you, Henry, with In the Land of Lies.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, Chapel Warriors, thank y'all for joining in tonight. And I strongly encourage you to look up ivancantu.org and see how you can help and get on it tonight, because the clock is ticking. And if you are in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, make sure that you show up at what courthouse is it?
It's a Collin County Courthouse on the 22nd at 11 a.m.
Okay. I know lots of people in that area, so maybe I'll encourage some. I'll send out some messages of myself. So we appreciate you all for joining us. This is a very, very serious case. So y'all pray for Ivan, and thank you, Matt, for all that you're doing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate your time.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.